There's a wonderful sense of voyaging. I feel that we were on a voyage in this beautiful concert, and especially in the Anjana Swaminathan piece, gorgeous and so peaceful. And I have some questions for you about the challenges. You've said that sometimes working on these pieces stretched you in certain ways, and I was interested in how, and particularly on the last piece. Are you a guitarist? Have you?
Well, I mean, clearly I'm not a guitarist or
Have
a
you been
singer.
one?
But no, I mean, you know, it's yeah. I wanted to try and overcome. Well, I wanted to, you know, my goal is to do what the composers were asking of me to do, which is the same thing I do in any work of, you know, any piece of music that I work on. Yeah, in this case, some of the things that I was, you know, there were some techniques on the violin that I was unfamiliar with that you know, really had to stretch my ability and also just my imagination, because it's never about the technique. It's about the, you know, it's about the effect that the composer is going for. You know, this, you know, playing a different instrument, and you know, it's funny. I really, you know, was excited about the works as they were being composed, and then when I was faced with things that were challenging, that I was unfamiliar with, my first reaction was, you know, total sense of fear, right? And in retrospect, it's this thing that we all worldwide are familiar with, which is that we're all afraid of the unfamiliar and the thing that we don't know, and it seems foreign, and there's a sense of trepidation, you know. And so I was very lucky that the composers were very kind and, you know, like gently guided me into their thought process and what they were going for. And so to get through, I mean, I haven't overcome all the fears, but to get through and be able to kind of embrace it's a big lesson for me.
You know, the Swaminathan piece is it has such a sense of calm, and yet you're going through many ideas, and you as the violinist are projecting this incredible, gorgeous tone and beauty throughout. And I was wondering, did you coach this at all with her in those ways?
Well, they are they wrote you know, a lot of instructions, and there's some videos about techniques that one could use, and but also it's also music that I love listening to, you know, Carnatic music or Hindustani music, and I mean, it's not, you know, definitely not an expert, but I do have like just a lot of joy being in that world, and they create such an incredible world just with the tape, you know, and hearing this conversation between Najna and their partner is so wonderful and so intimate. It's a beautiful world to be a part of.
The tape, was this an integral part of their project from the beginning, their concept?
I think it developed kind of in the middle of the process.
And that's something that I was interested in hearing you talk about a little bit, in the sense that you've developed this huge 24-piece cycle, which you now have recorded. And I would like to know how you began the process with each person. First off, did you have a huge concept in your mind at the beginning?
No, not really. I mean, it's kind of, you know, evolved throughout, but I knew that I wanted to commission a few, and then there was a lot of enthusiasm both from the composers and presenters, and so then a few turned to many, you know, and I just wanted to see, okay, like how many can we get? And I was trying to get to 20, and then, you know, we got 21st. It's like, all right, let's keep going.
It's amazing.
You know, and it was nice because it was a nice way to support the composers, you know, and just financially during the pandemic. You know, it was 2020 or 2021, and there was not much going on, as everybody knows. But now it's really nice to have this collection of work, and and I have, my list of composers and musicians that I'd like to work with is so much longer than 24. So I'm excited that there's some conversation now about trying to expand the collection further. So this might be just volume 1.
Some of them were new, I understand. Anjuna was new to you, I believe?
Yeah. Many were new. The people that I, that were recommended by friends or people that I knew from afar, but wasn't really familiar with their work. But a lot of them were also friends, and it was a great chance to commission work from friends, which also was really nice.
In the process of talking with composers, how did it work? When you first began talking, where it's just sort of everything is out on the table for discussion? Multimedia, how did you arrive at some of those collaborations?
I really left it pretty open to what the composers wanted to do. So yeah, all I asked for was a piece of a certain length, which was about 5 to 10 minutes, which is funny because Anjuna piece is about 20 minutes, and there's another one that's 25 minutes, which I love. It's like, if I'm gonna write, I'm gonna write. And then I just asked to think about, to reflect in some way on the time that we're experiencing. And some people chose to do it very, very directly, and some indirectly, and some chose not to do it at all, and that was totally fine. Yeah.
I loved your comment in an article I read where you said, I invite you to stop reading the pundits and to listen to music and to engage with this music. And I think that is great advice.
Well, okay, great.
I was thinking about two things about emotions that struck me while reading about this and while hearing you. And one is that both Clarice Assad and Anjana Swaminathan speak of hope in their comments, in their program notes. And Olivia Davis also talks about the potential for hope and betterment. How has this, do you view these as a gesture toward hope? I do. And how has this changed your life as a musician, as an artist? This process, this project?
Well, I mean, I think many musicians, I'm not actually one of them, but many musicians are optimists by nature. I'm not known for my optimism, but I mean, I think to me it just gave a sense of purpose in a time where also there was not much going on, and just to lift this thing off the ground was. It was a lot of work, but it felt really worthwhile. And my hope is that more people will both play these works, and they've already started. People already start reaching out, looking for scores, and that the composers will get new commissions from other people. Yeah, because it's all like this is we're all in this community, and it feels good to be a part of it and just kind of push the thing forward.
The hope and the sense of joy comes across so strongly in your performance of these works that you have really brought about. And I was thinking about a comment from Martin Hayes, the Irish fiddler, who's, I believe, a friend of yours.
Very close friend, yeah.
He's an amazing artist, and he has been saying that for every evening, in the course of an evening, I want to touch free abandon and joy. And that's what you bring. It's remarkable.
Well, Martin has been like a huge inspiration to me ever since we first met him. Was Brooklyn Writer. We have a project with him that's been going on for about 10 years, and that is exactly what you see and feel when you see him perform. This sense of total freedom and abandonment, and just like he kind of loses his physical body and just, I don't know, he's a magician. And that was my goal when I actually started learning the cello suites. I wanted to get to that place where it felt like what was coming out was not music that was written, but just kind of like a flow of energy. So I'm still working on that, but Martin is great.
You have such a lightness and airiness in this, and of course some of it I'm sure is your long involvement with folk music of many traditions and so on, but I was curious, I know you've recorded this using a 5-string violin, and I wondered what that brought to your concept, to your sound world for that.
Oh, well, the 5-string violin, it was something that I originally got to play the 6-cello suite, because that was written for a 5-string instrument, and I just wanted to have that experience. But of course, and you know, I come from the classical tradition where the 5-string violin is not really seen very much, but it is very prominent in folk music, right? Like so many people have 5-string instruments, and it's also used on Broadway and stuff. But it's just and also, you know, different tunings, right, are very, very common in folk traditions. So experimenting with that, like for Rhiannon's piece, it makes sense to, well, it's good, it's nice to have that low string to just ring and give a little oomph to everything. And the tuning for that was just D's and G's, and she didn't write it that way, but it just sounds good. And for Anjana's piece, once I started working on it in the studio, it felt like also in certain moments, this idea of the drone, which is so present in music, would be nice. And since I'm only one person, you know, even though there's tape, but to have that low end kind of ringing was nice as well. So yeah, and Terry Riley wrote a new piece for 5-string violin for this project. So there's that.
So, thinking about back to Anjana's piece, maybe to sort of wrap up a little bit with, their piece asks a timeless question about how do we understand each other? We are so separated from everyone by space, time, experience, and race. And thinking about your program with these pieces which express such hope, such joy, what is your feeling about moving forward? How can we think in a new way? What's the role of the artist in thinking of a new way? Can our culture evolve? That's a heavy one.
Do you have any serious questions? I mean,
We'll leave you with this for the evening. But no, seriously, having created this remarkable, huge project, its impact on you has been profound, and on listeners has been profound. Has it changed the way you view the harsh world that we are seeming to find ourselves in these days?
Well, you know, this process of being afraid of something or of someone, and then overcoming that fear, was a big lesson. And the other thing is that a good friend has often said that in order to get to know somebody, you need to find out what they're really passionate about. And that's what I love about the work with new music, with composers, you know, with all musicians really. It's like that's what we do. We kind of talk about the things that we really love, and then invite other people into that world and create something new, and that process is magical. So if we can just take that and apply it everywhere else, that would be great.
Well, it's pretty impressive. I think this is a good note to end on. It's a remarkable concert that you've given us, an extraordinary evening, and we thank you so much, and we hope to see you again.
Thank you.
We also would like to thank Washington Performing Arts, Jenny Billfield,
thank you, everybody.
Samantha Pollock, Kayla Lurie, all the colleagues from there.
Thank you so much.